So I am going to be trying an experiment, and what this is completely off scripted. So what you see is what you get. Of course, I may do a little bit of editing because let's face it, when you go from completely scripted content to freestyling, things can get a little messy. But I decided that I really owe it to myself and to you to let you see the true me. And the reason why I have made this decision right now is because I'm starting a new series of what I'd like to now call the Triple P program. And that's not positive parenting program, which is what I'm familiar with from my clinical days, but it is instead patterns, personality, and programming. So my last series was called Patterns, Personality, and the Nervous System, and I've decided to rename this series. And the reason why is because the nervous system does become our programming. When we are growing up, when we are at that formative stage between the ages of 0 and 7, and our brains are like little sponges and we take on everything that is presented to us, we are at our most innocent and at our most resilient. And it's during that stage of our life that we take on board these programming messages that then can evolve into patterns of behavior which we repeat and replicate through our lives, especially if they are rewarded with a positive impact. And that then can develop into our personality. So I'm not sure if you saw my first series, but I would invite you to go back and to look at the way that I was presenting then, and just know that that was entirely me reading from a script. This series, I have decided to flip that pattern, and instead of feeling in touch and in control, to just let it go from my heart and let me speak to you. And if that means that some of my programs and patterns come out, then that will be what will be. Because when you see me express emotion, then just know that that is energy that needs to move. And one of the patterns that I would like to speak about to start with is the big P for me, and I identify it as such, and that is procrastination. And I woke up especially early this morning. Didn't actually have any plans for it, but I did wake up early, and I could have gotten up right then and there and done exactly what it was that was in my heart at that time and that was coming to me, which was sit down in front of the camera and record and speak about how it has been such a shift to go from the protocol driven, very positive and programmed professional doctor that I was for nearly 30 years into allowing myself the space to heal. And I recognized that I didn't quite allow myself enough space, and that there are still parts of myself that come from that early onset programming that I mentioned, and are yet to find their voice in the role that I am choosing for myself in my now second career. And it's really interesting that when you look at families, one of the things that I notice, my father was a very influential character for me. Uh, That's where a lot of the wounding comes, because I recognize that I always wanted to gain his approval when he was alive. And I had the perception that I hadn't. And it was on very rare occasions that he would actually let me know that he was proud of me. So, that still feels very, very raw, as you can see, because the energy is moving. And yes, I do occasionally have tissues, but I never wear makeup because that just makes a big mess. And I think that messes is one of my aversions, that I don't like to create messes. I really do recognize that the programming that I inherited from my father suggested that I should be professional, polished, practiced. You can get the alliteration. This so, um, and the reality is that I'm not, and nobody is. I mean, what is perfection? It's just like what is normal. We are such a diverse range of faces and personalities on what is basically the same biologically underneath, and that is that we all have these core needs, especially we think that, they're there for children, but they persist with us all through our life. And that is that we need to feel safe and we need to feel like we have the ability to exert some degree of control. And we need to also feel like we matter. That whether that's that we have a purpose or whether that's we just have that confidence that we know inside that we matter. And we also need to belong. So we need to feel like we're part of a tribe. And those are our people, the people that surround us. And whether that's in real life or on social media, in our communities, online, etc. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that, you just had your community, your literal physical community around you. And there are various parts of the world where that is all they have. They don't have this digital information age, but they're few and far between. So this connection to so many others other than your immediate vicinity is a trend that's growing and isn't going to be reversed unless something happens, such as there is no such electricity or internet or something like this. So, you know, but getting back to those five basic human needs, the fourth need is that we need to feel love and connection. And once we have those first four basic human needs satisfied, then we can go on to that level of soul expansion and contribution. And so, as I was explaining those needs to you, you can feel that there was still energy that needs to move around those perspectives of when I mention about my father and that core wounding that is there. And for those of you who do know me in real life, know that, he was a very proud man, very capable, but he was an immigrant. He came to this country as a young adult, and he really felt like he had to prove himself because he was so different from the people who were here. So he had an accent. English was his second language, although he had studied it at school. And those differences he was aware of all through his life, and he worked super hard to overcome them so that he would blend in and be having those five basic needs met. So I just wanted to start just by having this as my initial unscripted YouTube long form because this is, I feel, the platform wherein I can be myself and I can communicate and I have got the ability to edit. But I promise I will keep in all of what I have said for this one. It will be raw, it will be unpolished and not completely unedited, but mostly. And I do believe that it will allow you, the viewers who are watching this, to actually see a window into my soul and recognize that I am just a woman. Sure, I had 30 years clinical experience as a doctor, a medical doctor, which in our society is a position that I believe is pedestaled to a level which these days may actually be out of sync with what in reality is there, because the reality is it's a tradition that is built in Western society that doctors are placed at this position where they have authority and they have power, which I feel is absolutely critical, must not be misused. Because the reality is, at least when I was a doctor, I was highly aware of the rate of development of technology and the potential that really, how was anyone ever to actually keep up with that? There's Cheeky coming in to have a look and see what mum's doing. So we have a very open plan house. I am in communication with the rest of my house. So the noises in the background. I'm not going to be able to edit out. And yes, I know what she's wanting. She's wanting the walk, but she's not listening. So she's not going to give you the little ears up with the walk, which is her way of saying, yes, yes, that's my passion. That's what I love. But, oh, yeah, she's whimpering a little bit. It will happen very soon. So it's early in the morning now, and the household is getting ready, and I have my cup of hot water, which is my morning habit. But yeah, what I was saying was this pedestaling positioning of doctors in society. I'm not saying that they don't deserve it in the tradition, because the tradition was that the physician was seen as the healer. And over 100 years ago, physicians had a wealth of tools available to them and were trusted and chosen as being part of that profession because they had the gift of assisting people to just feel better. And I know that I have that gift as well. I know that when people come into my presence, they just feel better because I can listen to them and I am interested in their stories. I can validate them and I can make them feel like those 5 human needs are being met. And I actually think that that is the art of medicine. And unfortunately, when protocols and the scientific method, if you believe in that, comes into the way in which medicine is practiced, it still has that art. But I believe that it is a mistake to train doctors to disconnect from the most human, emotional part of themselves, that organic part of themselves wherein they connect with their heart essence and they connect with the heart essence of that individual in front of them, so that they are actually providing comfort at the most basic level. Because I know that that's what I can do really, really well. And I felt through the change that happened in my position as a doctor, I felt that that was not actually being allowed, whether it was by me or whether it was by the system or whether it was just a perception that I had that was clouding my ability to function in that role. I came to that realization that the system wasn't supporting my highest good of myself, but I now recognize with the benefit of the hindsight that I like to call the retrospectoscope, that that was just a perception that I had at that time. And perhaps I was projecting that. And doesn't really matter what the reality was. That's history. You know, I made that decision. I allowed myself to become so absorbed in the perceived blocks within my energy in functioning in that role that I had had for so long that I was no longer able to perform in that role. So that is pretty well why I left medicine. And now, with the benefit of sitting in this place of regulation and recognizing that life does go on after you make the choice for a career change. And the reason why I originally brought up my father was because he did exactly the same thing during his life. He got to a stage where he recognized that there was something different and he retrained. He retrained midway through his career and then spent the majority of his life and in a completely different field from what he originally trained within. And so this may well be the path that I'm taking. And how many of you notice that there are patterns that your parents have carved out within their life, and then especially if you pay special attention to that pattern and you may think to yourself, oh, I'm not going to be the same as my parent, or I'm going to take a different path. And then lo and behold, you have that benefit of hindsight and you look back and you recognize so much of your parents in your own patterns. So is that ironic or is that a common observation? I'm not sure. I'd be really interested to hear in your comments below if you feel that that is an observable phenomenon and what is your explanation for it, or are you just curious about it as I am? So, anyway, I'm done talking. I've still got my hot water here, but it's time for the driving lesson. So, thank you for listening. And I hope that this has piqued your curiosity and you may tune in for the next episode because I've certainly enjoyed speaking.